I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and we now have a few more clues as to the Conservative leadership race. Just before the weekend, they announced that the event itself will be held on June 27th, which is also coincidentally Pride in Toronto. And they also outlined some of the conditions, particularly that the minimum deposit is going to be $300,000 and that candidates need to sign up at least 3,000 members. This is different from the last leadership contest where it was a $100,000 deposit and 300 members. And what the dynamic is here is that they are trying to go for a serious contenders only. What often has been happening in leadership contests is you get a bunch of people who come in and they're either single issue or they're just trying to build a profile. And we've seen this repeatedly across parties. The Conservatives decided, and have been having a fairly open debate about this whole notion, in order to try and make sure that the candidates they're attracting for this leadership contest are ones who have a reasonable chance of actually forming government, as opposed to people who are, as we mentioned, building a profile or hoping that maybe they'll get a cabinet post in the future or so on. The high deposit figure is also important because it's going to show the ability for these candidates to be able to fundraise. One of the object lessons from the previous contest was Kevin O'Leary, who thought that he could simply use his own money to pay for things and not really worry about the fundraising component. But that's not exactly legal under Canadian election law. And he's trying to contest that in court, but in the meantime, it's a reminder as to why we have the kinds of limits and structures that we do, which is to essentially democratize these kind of contests so that it's just not wealthy individuals who can pay for it out of their own pockets who can afford to join. Similarly, with a high membership requirement of 3,000 members, that's also trying to gauge how well these candidates can organize, and being able to sign up new members is part of that organizational ability. For parties, though, it's also a chance for them to try and build their databases some more and try and identify new potential voters and volunteers. There were, after all, a lot of rumors about inability to motivate enough volunteers in certain parts of the country. So it's important for them to try and ensure that they've got a leader who can, have a bit of experience at least in trying to mobilize people. And that's important in politics. And I think sometimes that has gotten away from certain members or certain parties as they're trying to use leadership contests to try and grow lists and so on. A 6-month contest is probably a reasonable amount of time. It will help to focus the field as well as the high requirements. So we should hopefully see a much smaller field of candidates in this contest than we did in the previous one. That will hopefully make for more focused debates and a little more of a streamlined process. And so it's not simply going to be a number of candidates who are looking to raise a profile, but the party making a more serious effort at trying to ensure that they, are building a message that they can sell to Canadians, which they failed to do in the previous election. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.